My name is Monique from Simply Robotics, the podcast, and you're watching the Disney Channel. No, I'm kidding. My name is Monique, yes, but you are actually listening to Simply Robotics, the podcast, a podcast exploring the animation industry one episode at a time. You can find me on all social media platforms at Simply Robotics, SIMPLYROBOTIX. When listening to the show, use the hashtag Simply Robotics Pod to join in the conversation. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about Nickelodeon's 2019 release of Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling. So to start off, I'm going to go watch a trailer and then give you a trailer review. And then I'll get into reviewing the movie and telling you my thoughts and my feelings and all that good stuff that you constantly come back and, you seem to tolerate. The first thing that sticks out to me about this Rocko's Modern Life trailer is that I don't really remember how the show ends. And the trailer starts off saying that they've been in space floating around for like 20 years and they seem to be coming back to Earth, so that they stop and they return to Earth. And Rocko was like, wow, I don't think we're in the 90s anymore. And I just, for one, thought that it was quite comical and a nice, poke at clearly time has passed since we've last been here. And it seems like the trailer or the movie itself is going to be about them trying to get reacclimated with Earth, or just like see, I don't know, what's going on, what's changed, what's new, what's old things that are not anymore. So I just remember as a child, I was really into Rocko's Modern Life. And I unfortunately just don't remember why or what it was. But I mean, it was the 90s and we accepted a lot of cartoons just because they were cartoons, and they were wacky and zany and just completely off the wall. And especially Nickelodeon in the 90s. I mean, all of them, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network in particular, were really off the wall with their cartoon programming. So I am looking forward to enjoying this film and let the good times roll. Okay, so I have just watched the movie and let's get started. Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling is a 2019 American animated web television special based as well as a continuation of Joe Murray's Nickelodeon series, Rocko's Modern Life. I'm getting all this information from Wiki. I'm going to keep reading. It was originally slated to premiere on Nickelodeon in 2018 as a television special, but it was left unaired. So in May 2019, Nickelodeon sold the distribution rights of the special to Netflix, which released the film on August 9th, 2019. Therefore, this was airing about 23 years after the original series finale. And truth be told, as I said in the trailer review, I don't remember how this show ended. And even when I was watching the trailer, for a moment, I was like, is Rocko an alien? And he's not an alien. He's very much a wallaby. And he says that multiple times. And as he said that in the movie, I remember that he used to say that in the cartoon as well. But now I kind of want to watch this season or series finale just to see how it all ended. But as I said, this was released August 9th, 2019. It was about 45 minutes long. And that technically makes it, I guess, a movie, but it just felt like a longish episode. It didn't really feel like a movie. It was directed by Joe Murray and Cosmo Serguson. It was created by whatever Nickelodeon Animation Studio and Yeson Entertainment Inc. And that's who did the animation. And there was another studio that isn't credited, so I didn't do too much research on what all of that was about, so I didn't include it. The plot being, after Rocko's house was launched into space, Rocko, Heffer, Filburt, and Spunky have been adrift for 20 years doing nothing but watching old videos of the Fatheads episodes, and passing by Earth, Philbert realizes that the remote control for the rocket has been stuck to Heffer's butt the whole time. they use the re-entry button and they're able to land back in O-Town, which they find has changed dramatically over the last 20 years. I mean, duh, obviously. Rocko is extremely overwhelmed and secludes himself in the house. Bev Bighead, who is their neighbor, comes to welcome Rocko back to Earth. And when asked by Rocko why he can't find Fatheads on TV, she explains that the show has been off and Rocko begins to spiral. That's the plot according to... I think I also got that from Wiki, I'm pretty sure. So to delve into the characters a little bit, main character or the most main character is Rocko. Rocko is an Australian wallaby, and although he is hygienic, polite, caring, practical, he, it says, has an almost pathological tendency to neglect his living space, which sounds very, very alarming. And that he also has anger management issues. I don't know why words are working against me, but I'm also getting these character descriptions from Rocko's Modern Life.fandom.com, which is basically a wiki of the show and the movie, etc. Next character is Heffer Wolf. That's Rocko's best friend, also I guess a very important secondary character. Heffer's catchphrase, which can be heard in the opening theme song, of the show, is "That was a hoot." And I'm pretty sure I said that somewhere relatively recently. Heffer is a steer, also known as a male cattle, in his mid-20s. His name is obviously a pun on the word heifer, which is a female animal that has never had a calf. And I remember being I don't know, in 5th or 6th grade or something like that. And I guess that's when I was understanding that heifer was a bad word. And I was like, they named a character a bad word this whole time, But I guess it kind of depends on who your parents are, if this word is really bad or not. I'm not even sure if my mom's not American, so I'm not even sure how aware of this word she is or is not. Moving on is Philbert, who's Rocko's other best friend, who's a turtle and is about in his 40s, they say. Philbert is, I don't know, just your typical kind of nerdy person thing. Moving on to Rocko's neighbors, I should say. We have Ed Bighead. He's the husband of Beverly, aka Bev Bighead, the father of, let's just say he's a father, because this comes into a bit more later, and I don't want to get into that right now. He is essentially the antagonist, or the closest thing to the antagonist of this show. And, he has a nice little character arc in the Static Cling movie. Then we move on to Bev Bighead, who's the wife of Ed and, the mother of the child. And then we have the child, Rachel Bighead, who was born Ralph Bighead, is Ed and Bev's daughter, and is known for creating this beloved show to Rocko, whatever, called the Fatheads. Then a person that just had to be acknowledged. Two. I was going to say first Spunky, the dog. I'm pretty sure I had that dog in a Burger King toy or something like that. The person that I was going to say is Mr. Dupeter. Wow, Mr. Dupeter. He's the CEO of Conglomo. It's a mega corporation whose motto is "We own you." And it needs to be noted. It needs to be said. I do remember the show being kind of gross. Not gross like Are Your Monsters gross. And not exactly completely like Invaders and gross, but it was still gross. And this character, Mr. Dupeter, digs and picks his nose so much. It was literally making me cringe. I was ugh. No. I didn't like that at all. Really didn't like that. Moving on to talk about the visual style. My nose is itching. I'm sorry. The visual style. It stays really, 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 really close to the 90s visual style. And I think the art team did a great job in not modernizing the backgrounds in the sense that it looked like traditional materials or mediums were used and not that they were painting in digital, programs. The backgrounds, I would say, were like very, very soft. Like you would have thought they used maybe like watercolors or pastels or something like that, like actual materials. But I'm sure they just use, some brushes and whatever art programs that they did. And I also appreciated that being that the show was made within the last couple of years, it isn't very saturated, which is a big thing with computer animated stuff, is that like every color is just so like strong and bold and like vibrant and all that sort of stuff. But with Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling, they really, like I said, kept close to the 90s visual style and had a lot of muted colors. Like I actually do remember that about the show, is that it was kind of like a bit on the blander side, and they kept in alignment with that. Animation style, there really isn't too much to be said that I haven't said about some other stuff, and maybe I'm always going to keep like addressing these things, but it's 2D animated. So it doesn't feel like something like kind of like Invader Zim. It doesn't feel like something that was made recently. It feels like maybe this was made just a couple years after the show went off the air, not 23 whole years later. It doesn't feel like that at all. So I liked that. And it's not puppet animation like Teen Titans Go. Like I always reference that. It isn't like Total Drama Island or anything like that. Like it feels pretty organic, and I appreciate that so much. Going back to like maintaining like 90s animation styles, there's a lot of smear frames. And what that means is like things are like blurred. So if you watch anime, you're familiar with smear frames where things are like blurred or like stretched often. And there are also enough moments where Rocko's like bugging out. He's like losing his mind and he's waving his hands up and down. And there's like multiple hands, right? So at any moment, it looks like he has 6 to 10 arms because this is just, how they did the animating. Getting into some of the story is so simple. And then there's an unexpected twist that I will continue to get into in a moment. So Rocko and his friends, right? They're back on Earth, back in O-Town, I think that was called, after 20 years of like being in space. And the only thing that's going to help Rocko adjust is to show the Fatheads, right? The show, the show The Fatheads that is no longer on TV. So like, duh, he's gonna do what he has to do to get the show back on TV because we're talking about a movie here. So as he's coming up with his plan and eventually executing his plan, we see how comfortable Heffer and Philbert are with life as it is right now. Like they just get right back into the swing of things. They're like this play on cell phones where it's called an O-phone. And I think Heffer gets the O-phone 8, and Philbert has the O-phone 9. And then like 3 seconds later, a guy comes out and puts a poster up outside of a store, and they're like, the O-phone 10 is being released, and everyone storms inside to get the latest phone. So I thought that was funny. But the point of that being is that Heffer and Philbert, they're just very acclimated. Like they didn't miss a beat. This is the spoiler that we're going to get into, is that the moment that caught me by surprise was when they finally, Rocko, Heffer, and Philbert go on this adventure basically to find the creator of the show, which is the Bighead's child. And when they find the character, it's revealed that the character is now a woman. And she has avoided returning home for all of these years, essentially the whole time Rocko's been gone, because, she didn't know how her parents were going to react. And that's when things got very interesting for me. Yeah, I was like, oh, like, this is what we're doing. I'm interested in seeing how they're going to handle this going forward, right? So initially, Ed the father, was not receptive at all of his child's transition. And it was a little uncomfortable to watch. And I thought things were going to get a little bit cringy very quickly. He even says, like verbatim, "My son made the show. No son, no show." And I was like, ugh, you know? And Rachel, his daughter, leaves after being disowned by her dad in this moment. But thankfully, she didn't let that stop her from making the show. And that's when Rocko lost his mind again. Like, in a 45-minute program, Rocko has lost his mind so many times. So basically, Rocko gets upset because the show didn't fulfill his nostalgic needs. And I think that's something we can all relate to. This is his favorite show that, you know, he hasn't been able to experience a new episode for 20 years. And now he finally gets a new episode and it's different. And it's not anything like what he's used to, you know? So this is then followed by a moment where Ed Bighead is delivering a sermon basically to Rocko about how we can't live in the past. And if we don't embrace what's new now, we're going to miss out on a lot of important things. And then he hugs his daughter. And this was just like I said, the character journey that Ed Bighead had to go on. And it was just very nice. It almost seemed a little bit too quick and easy, but there were some moments where like, he was still reluctant to give in to the fact that he has a daughter now and this is who his child is and this is how he has to engage and acknowledge and affirm his child, right? He was still a bit hesitant and wasn't sure how to move forward with that. So for the most part, I thought that was a decent way to tie everything together. Final thoughts. In true 90s reminiscent, 90s acknowledgement, 90s homage fashion, I felt like this film was very chaotic at times, not the whole time, but like that's just the way cartoons are. Like I feel like anytime I revisit something like this, I'm just reminded that I'm not a child, like I'm not the target audience. And for me now as a grown up, right, as an adult, when things are just going all over the screen, there's like a whole bunch of like movement and it's scattered and there's screaming and there's just sounds, it like low-key drives me crazy. I'm like, how did I digest this as a kid? But you're a kid and you're also chaotic. Like, you know, even if you're a timid kid, like you're still by default of being a kid, like at least chaotic on the inside, right? So this film also had like a very conscious undertone within it. Rocko wants his old show back so much. And when he gets it, he's like, yuck, it's different. And I want what I had 20 years ago. And I think a lot of us, especially millennials, can relate to that, you know? So many things like Rocko's Modern Life, Invader Zim, Rugrats, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Hey Arnold had a reboot, Space Jam 2 is coming back, SpongeBob never left, Scoob came back, like, you know, just so many things that's been rebooted and brought back and modernized, and Teen Titans, like, you know, so many things that we really wanted and were happy about in some ways that they were coming back, but then it's too different. It's not what we remembered. It doesn't fulfill our nostalgic needs. So, you know, I thought that it was just so interesting the way that this film is made 23 years after the last episode and is like socially self-aware at that time. So I also want to acknowledge I'm just going to say I got most of this stuff from Wiki, honestly. And it reads, in this special, it is revealed that the former Ralph Bighead is transgender and now goes by the name Rachel. Murray, the director, stated that the theme of the special about accepting changes made the inclusion of a trans character and having others accept their change felt natural as a part of the story. At Nickelodeon's suggestion, Murray's team worked with the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, also known as GLAAD, to help make sure the representation was respectful to transgender individuals while fitting into the comedy of the show. Now, I kind of feel like this having a transgender character actually like made the movie. Like, I feel like if they didn't introduced Rachel, it just would have been boring. It would have been like, okay, like, I don't know. But I also wonder why, by them having a transgender character, why this film wasn't maybe talked about more or pushed more. And maybe I just missed it because I'm not a part of that community. But I feel like there was very little buzz about this. And, you know, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why. But to wrap things up, I don't have like anything bad. Even though I said this film was chaotic, I have nothing bad to say about this. I would watch this again. I would probably just have it play in the background as I'm doing something else. It's just fine. I don't think this is something I'm gonna be like, oh, I really need to watch that Rocko's movie, you know? But I have nothing against it. I don't regret the 45 minutes I spent watching this. I don't regret all the time I went into the producing and recording this stuff for this episode. Like, if you enjoyed Rocko's Modern Life, you're gonna enjoy this movie. Like, you just are. It's fine. And that's it. That's the episode. Thank you for listening. As always, thank you for sharing. Thank you for engaging. You can follow me, like I said, on all social media platforms at Simply Robotics, SIMPLYROBOTIX. The website, simplyrobotics.com. If you're listening on an iPhone, or maybe even if you're not, go on a computer, you know, go to iTunes podcast, rate on whatever app. If they have a rateability function, you know, rate there. Sign up for my newsletter if you haven't. It's a monthly, like, kind of like digest. And up next, I'm realizing that I actually have a lot of diverse tunes audio that I haven't released. Like, it's been a long time since I released a panel audio. So if I don't do that next, I'm going to be doing that very, very soon. And then, of course, more reviews of shows and movies and guests. And if there's something that you would like me to review or talk about, definitely let me know. If there's someone that you think could be a cool guest or whatever, let me know. If you would like to be a guest, you can also let me know. You know, I'm not making any promises for anybody, but I'm open. I'm open to at least, you know, let's see. And if we can figure something out. But again, I'm not making any promises. So that is it. Thank you so much. And, you know, you'll be hearing from me soon. Bye.